her son. Randy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Todd?
Very good. You sent me a wonderful PowerPoint, a PDF that I thought I would share with people. Do you just want to jump right in?
Sure. Or if you'd like me to advance it, I could share my screen. And that way I don't have to ask you to advance the slide.
We don't trust you to share your
Oh,
screen,
okay.
Randy. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We could just do it this way. And if you get frustrated by it, just let me know and Ellie will give you permission to share your
Sure.
screen.
No problem. Well, first, a few words. I just want to say thank you very much for having me. It's quite an honor to be in the company of all you people who have served this country. It's quite an incredible honor as an architect to be able to serve the veteran community and the veterans of Desert Storm and the National Desert Storm and Desert Shield War Memorial Association as the architect. I've been working on this since 2012. And it's been a long road to get here, and we've got a lot of road yet still in front of us. But it's being led by a tremendous group of people, and it's quite a passion project for me and for everyone that's involved. And you all are my heroes, and the people that served in Desert Storm are my heroes. And you know, the story behind it is incredible. And the CEO of the association, Scott Stump, you know, he decided to do this memorial because he didn't want to be a footnote in history. He knows that the world and the United States of America needs to remember what happened and what we did, because it was America at its finest hour. So it's just an incredible honor to be a part of it. And I love having the opportunity to tell you all about the memorial and how we are setting out to try to honor those who served and what happened, with a very unique memorial that is designed based on the history of Desert Storm. So I've got a presentation. I'll try not to blabber on too much. I'll try to share the parts of the story that I think will be of greatest interest to you. This is the board of directors, and they are all veterans. They all served in Desert Storm. They are not Washington lawyers. They are not politicians. These are everyday Americans from across the country who served in Desert Storm and Desert Shield and are moved by this commitment, this desire, this drive to make sure that Desert Storm and Desert Shield is remembered properly in Washington, D.C. With an appropriate memorial. These people are, except for Scott, these people are not paid. Scott's job is a full-time job, and after serving for free for many years, I think the board forced him to take a salary, which they should have, and I'm glad they did. But all the rest of them are volunteers. They have regular day jobs, and they come from all walks of life and bring a different expertise to the table. And we've got a great team and great leadership and a solid board. I mean, you don't see board members coming and going. These people are committed, and they are providing the kind of leadership that would make you proud.
And I'll chime in to say, Randy, that I've just been around enough projects built around memorials to know that it is like running an ultra marathon. I mean, you know, this is a 10-year project. I mean, it's not something anybody gets rich off of. It's not something that you know, that any one person has a lot of control over, because it is, you can imagine the bureaucracy, the levels of bureaucracy, the red tape that you have to get through to get a memorial on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. So, Randy, I think part of the admiration that people have for you and others who've been working on this is just your determination, your sheer endurance. This is a long road. You said you've been working on it since 2012.
It's
And
a fact. Yes, it took us 3 years to get the site. And, we got to work through the Commission of Fine Arts. And if you could zoom out just a little bit to get the whole slide on the screen. There you go. So I'll kind of go through a little of the history quickly, but as you know, Iraq invaded Kuwait, a peaceful nation. They just basically rolled their tanks into Kuwait City, took over, and they set about making Kuwait a province of Iraq and started issuing Iraqi birth certificates to Kuwaiti citizens who were born after that date. It was a terrible thing, and you can advance the slide. The things they did that Saddam Hussein did, you could go on. Were terrible. That's a radar installation. They just destroyed, homes and stores, looted the shelves of the stores. The way they went in there and what they did to the country and to the people. And before they left, they committed the biggest act of environmental terrorism the world had ever seen, setting on fire 600 oil wells. And it was devastating what they did to this country. But following that, as you know, the United States of America led the effort to come to their aid. But and those famous words right there from President Bush, this will not stand, this aggression against Kuwait, it will not stand. And you can go on. What the United States of America and Secretary Baker and President Bush then did was they built a coalition of 35 countries to work together to confront the Iraqi military and get them out of Kuwait. And it was incredible because these countries came from all different religious backgrounds. You had Arab countries and Christian countries, and it was an incredible cross-section of countries from around Europe and around the region that all came together to right this terrible wrong. So after the coalition was formed, Operation Desert Shield began to protect Saudi Arabia from the possible advance of Iraqi forces south from Kuwait into Saudi Arabia. So we also protected Saudi Arabia. Next slide. And what was, it was a very, it was not a foregone conclusion. Many of you know and remember this, but following Vietnam, it was a very, very painful chapter in American history. It was not, nobody knew at the time that our victory would be what it was. We didn't know if we'd be ready. After Vietnam, it was déclassé to wear your uniform in public. People did not stop you in the airport to say thank you for your service. They stopped you in the airport for other worse reasons. I'm a little uncomfortable talking about it myself because I haven't served this country in that way. I wasn't in the military, and it's really hard for me to imagine how people could treat the people that defend this country and fight for this country in the way they were treated. It makes me uncomfortable to think about it and to talk about it.
And I will chime in just to say, yes, I guess President George H.W. Bush called it the Vietnam syndrome. And it was a sense that that the nation was still suffering from the horrible hangover of Vietnam, and how Vietnam veterans were treated when they got home from their service is just it's a national shame and embarrassment. And I think there was a sense that by 1990 that there was Americans needed to do penance for that. And your point about this not being a cakewalk, in retrospect, boy, 100-hour ground war, that's the kind of ground war you want to fight. But that was not the expectation in 1990, 1991, as the buildup was beginning. This was going to be a huge conventional war between 700,000 troops on one side and over 500,000 troops on the other, with tanks and artillery and rockets. And I mean, Iraq had the fourth largest army in the world at the time. It turns out it was kind of rotted from within, but we didn't quite know that. And so, yeah, it was a very tense time. And the people who opposed the wars, there were, many Americans who opposed U.S. Intervention in that region. The fear was this is going to be another Vietnam.
Right. It was. In fact, they sent 40,000 body bags to the area in preparation for the ground war. We just didn't know how it was going to play out. But American preparation prevailed. I got to meet General Horner in Washington a couple of years ago, and he engineered the air war, which was about 5 weeks long, and pummeled the Iraqi forces, softened them up significantly, and it was a major part of the victory. It was pivotal. It was indispensable. That part of the war strategy. And then the next slide shows Norman Schwarzkopf's famous left hook battle plan, which some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. The Iraqi army, of course, expected us to come straight up out of Saudi Arabia, straight up from the south, just hitting them head on. But Schwarzkopf knew that after the pummeling of the air war, he expected that they would retreat toward Iraq. So a major amount of our fighting force, all those arrows you see on the left side of that map, went up into Iraq and then turned right towards Kuwait and cut them off.
Yes.
And that was the left hook.
The left hook.
And
so
that is represented in the memorial's design. I will show you.
So Schwarzkopf's plan, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, was to kind of feint a major attack on the right flank directly into Kuwait, with the Marines leading the way. Brad Washabaugh was there. Brad shared a wonderful story of meeting Norman Schwarzkopf. And his essay is called "Now I Learned Firsthand Why They Called Him Storm and Norman." And Ellie or Sean, if you want to put a link to that, it's on our blog here in the Zoom side, on the Facebook side. It's a wonderful little insight into Norman Schwarzkopf. There were Marines staged on the right flank to invade Kuwait directly, and with the appearance that there was going to be many more troops to follow on that right flank. But in the meantime, the major movement was on the left flank, and as Randy said, the big left hook curling into Kuwait, hundreds of miles and around to the other border with Kuwait, and that's what helped seal such a quick victory in that 100-hour ground war.
That's right. So there's, of course, what has been called the Highway of Death, resulting as they retreated, the major offensive that was launched against them to defeat their retreating army. Another thing about Desert Storm and Desert Shield was, this war was broadcast into everyone's homes on CNN. And we learned all these new vocabulary words like smart bomb, things. So we saw every day this victory unfolding and the incredible new use of military technology to so soundly defeat the Iraqi forces. And this all built and contributed to this, what eventually would be the restoration of the reputation of the American military in the eyes of the American people. It led to this incredible victory in the streets of Kuwait City, the celebrations between the Kuwaitis and military forces from the 35 coalition countries. It was an incredible thing that we did. We all risked our lives, or I should say the American military risked their lives to rescue a country. And it was an incredible act of heroism for the United States of America to do this. You can go to the next slide, please.
Do you see this, Randy? Vietnam Syndrome Gone, front page of the Atlanta.
No, I'm still seeing the Time magazine
Hello.
cover.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
How you doing? Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Let me try this again. I may have been hung up here for some reason. How's this?
What happens? It's coming up now, I think. It's still black.
It's still black. Okay. Hold on. We're just experiencing some technical difficulties here. Let me try it one more time with another feature added. How's that?
There we go.
Okay.
There it is. So yes, Vietnam Syndrome Gone. That's Ambassador Skip Ganim, who is the ambassador at the American Embassy in Kuwait City, re-raising the American flag after Kuwait had just been liberated. Our team has had the great pleasure of working with Skip Ganim. I've had the pleasure of meeting him and talking with him and attending meetings with him, and he's been an advisor and a contributor to the effort to help us get the site awarded. This war was such an incredible victory that we had a victory parade on Constitution Avenue, which is very important because the memorial is on Constitution Avenue, 23rd and Constitution. It will be built there. And the fact that this parade went down Constitution Avenue helped us win that site. And it was a 3-year effort to convince the Commission of Fine Arts to award us what is probably the primo site for a memorial in all of Washington. Now this picture, of course, is not Desert Storm uniforms. This was several years after Desert Storm, but I think Desert Storm turned the corner and made this cover possible, because that was when the tide turned. Desert Storm made heroes out of the American military again. And the next slide shows you also as well, those words, "Thank you for your service." Most people don't remember those words being said before 1991. It was after 1991 that people started saying those words. And they say those words to this day as a result of the change that Desert Storm and Desert Shield brought around after Vietnam. And it's such a beautiful thing because, so the site.
Hey, Randy, you don't have to keep up with my clicking. You can continue your thought. You can finish your thought, I should say.
I will.
Okay.
The relationship to Vietnam is not just a calendar bookending where Vietnam is here and Desert Storm is there. They're inextricably linked in other really profound ways, because as many of you know, a lot of the people that served in Vietnam served in Desert Storm. So there's this link, almost this brotherhood. And I've heard many stories about Vietnam veterans thanking the Desert Storm veterans, and the camaraderie that is, I'm sure you people on this call can probably describe it much better than I can. But there's a strong kind of brotherhood or kinship between the two events. And that's why we wanted that site that we got. If you go back to the map, I'll show you the site. It's very, very close. So now the area outlined in red, nobody's allowed to build there. That's called the reserve. So for posterity, Congress passed a law saying no memorials can ever be built within this red line again. It was getting too crowded. But if you go to the next slide, on the left end there, so that circle is the Lincoln Memorial. And the red dot is the spot that is perfect for our memorial. And you can see it's just right outside that line. It's almost like they accidentally left the best piece of ground just waiting for us. And we fought for 3 years for it. We fought Scott Stump and C. Freeman and Kent Shively and Kyle Leggs. They fought the Commission of Fine Arts for 3 years to get that site awarded. I shouldn't say fought. It was quite a process of study. We brought in scholars who wrote papers for us and who testified. You know, the connection to the Vietnam Memorial and to the State Department and to the Lincoln Memorial, which is a symbol of liberation, creates a nexus that makes that, and Constitution Avenue. So that horizontal red line, that's Constitution Avenue, where that parade was. So there's this historic nexus that makes this site the perfect location for the Desert Storm and Desert Shield Memorial.
Oh, how neat.
It also happens that the
And
site is beautiful.
I'm sorry, Randy, I just want to invite C and Christine, if you want to chime in at any point, because I know you were part of that process. I don't want to cut Randy off, but feel free to chime in if you'd like. Sorry, Randy.
Absolutely. I'll
Okay.
blabber on forever if you let me. So you guys. So yeah, this slide gets it perfect. So you can see if you draw a line across the north wall of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, go one way to the right, which is it lines up with the Washington Monument. If you extend it the other way, it just happens to go right through our site, which I think is a really pretty cool alignment.
So cool.
Also, we had to push the memorial up north to stay out of the reserve, A, and B, to preserve as much of that pristine parkland as possible, because that's America's front yard. You know, people recreate there, and that's part of the function of the National Mall. You know, when senators and congressmen and congressional aides and, you know, lawyers or whoever want to play a game of softball, or tourists or veterans, you can go onto the National Mall and you can play a game of softball. That's part of the National Mall. So we were saving a lot of that site for that purpose. So we've nestled the site up towards the trees. This is the money shot. This is looking right across the site. This is the view from the memorial. You can see the Lincoln Memorial, a symbol of liberation. And off to the left side of this, a couple hundred yards, is a Vietnam Veterans Memorial. It is probably the finest piece of ground in all of Washington for this memorial.
Gives me chills. Mary, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi, Randy. I'm Mary. I'm not a veteran either, but I'm a tour guide, licensed tour guide in DC. And I was under the impression, we've been told for years that plot of land where you're speaking of, that was going to be the museum that would talk more about the Vietnam War and then showcase a lot of the items that were left at the wall. Do you know if that has been pushed down further from the memorial, or they've canceled that altogether? Do you know? Excellent question. If you go back to the map, very good question. It's funny. So the site that was to have been for the Vietnam Veterans Visitors Center is just to the right. Go back down one more slide to blow up the aerial photo. You had it before, Todd.
Okay.
Yeah, that one.
So just to the right of the site, there's a triangular piece of open ground there,
Okay.
right where the word Vietnam is written.
Hmm.
That's where the visitor center was going to have been.
Okay.
And originally, way back in 2012, when I started designing this, I wanted to put the Desert Storm Memorial there. So I was close. I was in the ballpark, but we ended up across the street. The visitor center project, I think, I believe it was terminated. I
Oh,
believe they
man.
had funding problems, and that I believe that project is no longer moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that's the site. It's a wonderful site. So when we began design back in 2012, this effort's led by veterans. It's for veterans. And we put out a survey to veterans of Desert Storm and asked them 5 questions about how should we design this memorial? Because look at me, what do I know about a memorial for Desert Storm? I knew that the veterans of Desert Storm needed to be heard. And the memorial needed to be designed for them. And it needed to be meaningful for them and their families, as well as for America. And we learned these 5 things in the survey from veterans: that the memorial should honor those who serve, that Schwarzkopf's left hook should be represented in the memorial, the 35 Nation Coalition. The American veterans were telling us that the 35 Nation Coalition needed to be represented somehow. The uniqueness of the desert environment needed to be represented in the memorial. And the mop gear that you all had to wear in the desert, came up in the survey. And we struggled with that as a design team, how to represent that. So after years of working on this, we've kind of settled on one main overarching theme, which is to honor those who served. The main theme of the memorial is to honor those who served. And you can go down a lot of different avenues. There's a lot of things you can do in a memorial. There's a lot of things that we want to put in it. The pivot, you have no idea. The team has worked for all these years on hundreds of meetings and studying the site and studying the design and talking about the narrative and working with artists. And so we finally have come to a design shown here on your screen, which is somewhat shaped like a storm, but it goes much, much deeper than that. So you can see the line of the reserve. So we've stayed outside of the reserve. We're nestled up into the trees, and it's shaped somewhat like a storm. But it's much deeper. If you go to the next slide, it's a very, very symbolic design that encloses a space, a sacred space, because you've got a busy street on 2 sides of you. Noise from Washington, D.C. You've got airplanes going in and out of Reagan Airport nearby. We knew we needed to create a space that we could somewhat shield from the noise to create an appropriate memorial experience. So we surrounded it with walls, curved walls. Now, out of respect for the Lincoln Memorial and out of respect for the National Mall, it is required that the memorial be low to the ground. We could not go 12 feet tall or 40 feet tall. There's no spires, no towers. It's got to be low to the ground and respect the landscape of the National Mall. And this is dictated by the Commission of Fine Arts. So we developed this dune-like idea where the 2 curving walls that enclose the space are symbolic of the left hook shape. So as people move into the memorial across the bottom of this image, They're literally walking in this left hook shape, and they're enclosed by these two walls that are reminiscent of the desert environment. Yet at the same time, we wanted this memorial to be comfortable. It is so hot in Washington. A lot of the memorials you go to, you know, they get so hot. They have these big open areas of paving, and it can be stiflingly hot. We've created a water feature in the middle and a canopy of trees to create a comfortable space in the middle. So it's an enjoyable place to go to. That's what this slide was talking about, the oasis. So it's an oasis in the desert, so to speak. And then every bit of the memorial's design is very carefully thought through and is being deliberated over in countless meetings with the board of directors, the Commission of Fine Arts, the National Park Service, the design team, which includes Skip Graffam with the Olin Studio in Philadelphia, one of the foremost landscape architects in the country, doing incredible work on this. But every square inch of it is being thought through about how are we going to build in the right symbolism. The main curved wall will probably be covered with bas-relief carvings that tell the story of the war. The second wall, shown there in blue, is going, right now we believe it's going to be symbolic of service and sacrifice, and it will have wreaths on it and some inscriptions that honor the sacrifice. Christine's son, and by the way, Christine, it's great to see you. It's been a while since I've seen you. It's an honor to have you here tonight.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
The other thing, I love this slide right here because it shows how different they are, but how poignant they both can be. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial on the left is a different kind of war. A different kind of memorial was called for. You descend down into the ground, you go down. It's carved like a gash into the earth. It's got 59,000 names of those lives that were lost. It is a place of mourning, as it should be. America, that memorial has helped America mourn and grapple with what happened in Vietnam. And a couple of 100 yards away, we want to build a memorial that tells a different story. A memorial about victory, a memorial about doing the right thing, a memorial where it's not a jagged cut in the earth, but you slowly curve in the left hook manner and you go uphill. You ascend, symbolically, you rise to the center. It's an entirely different experience, as it should be. Here's a 3D view of it. You can see the walls with the carvings on them. In the center, the coalition fountain, which would honor the 35 countries involved in the coalition. It would be a water feature, so as you ascend around and rise up to the center, you're left to contemplate the lasting message of the war, which was the unity of the world coming together to right this wrong. Some more images from inside the memorial, creating places for people to stay and to contemplate what happened. This slide gives you a little bit of an idea of the carvings on the wall, which are still being designed. We are not finished designing it. We do not have all the money we need to build it, far from it. The government does not give you money to build memorials. We do not get any money from the government. The US government has given us this site. And that is a pretty incredible thing, but the board is raising the money to build the memorial. It's my dream that they'll have it by November 11th. for Veterans Day this year. We cannot break ground until the money is raised. It's a law. We cannot turn over dirt until all the money is raised. And we've got a ways to go. We've got a good ways to go.
You know, I thought I would, Randy, this was so fascinating to hear a perspective of somebody who knows their history, but also somebody who has this artistic vision to how to represent something that is unrepresentable, really, war. I mean, how do you capture something like that in a, you know, architectural design? But I love hearing that inside view. What I want to do is, I thought, of course, I love Chris to talk and see, but I also want to open it up, especially to the Desert Storm veterans who are with us tonight, to get their perspective on it. Chris Pirollo, Leon Mickens is with us. We have Brad Washabaugh. We have, who else? I know we have somebody else here. Well, you know my point. What are your thoughts here? Oh, Patrick. Patrick, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I'm a Desert Storm veteran, but first of all, Christine, I wanted to thank you for your son's sacrifice. And I have a question for Christine, if I may.
Yes.
Christine, were you standing on the steps with us in 2019 when we posed for the photograph on Memorial Day when we marched in the parade, the Desert Storm veterans?
No,
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember if I recognized you from the photograph or not. So,
not from that time. No, I wasn't there for the Memorial Day.
okay.
Chris, I will ask you, you know, your son being killed February 25th, 1991, you've been involved with this effort to build a national memorial. I'm a king of asking stupid questions, but why is this memorial important to you?
Well, I think that everyone that participated should be remembered there. Like you said, we did a fantastic job. It was over quickly. Few casualties. One is too many, but we had so few there, and it was just so quickly. And every time I went to the No Greater Love ceremony to honor Brian and the others, I went several years. And when we would go to the Kuwait embassy and have dinner with them, sometimes I sat at the table with ambassadors, and it would give me chills that they said that they would never ever forget what the United States and the Allies had done for them. That when they were talking about giving birth certificates to people that said they were born in Iraq after they had stormed in and took over there, that their children now were not considered Iraqis because they got that back, and that they were Kuwaitis, and that they appreciated us so much. And after the Vietnam War, things were so bad. Just to hear that and hear them, and every year they would put on this wonderful, beautiful dinner for everyone to come and visit their embassy, and just to thank us for what we had done.
Chris, could you tell us a little bit about Brian? Why did he want to join the Army? What did you think when he said, "Mom, I'm joining the Army"?
Well, I was very surprised. He graduated from high school in June, and on the 4th of July, he went downtown to do whatever. And he came home and he said, I joined the Army out of nowhere. We'd never talked about this. And I was really shocked. But he said that, and I asked him why the Army, and he said it was the only recruiter open on the 4th of July. And so they got him. And but there was one problem, was that he was only 17. And so Mom had to sign the paperwork. And I knew that if I didn't sign it, that he would be 17 in 23 days, and then he would go anyway. So I signed the paperwork when the recruiter came and talked to them and let him go. But back in 1986, there weren't a lot of jobs. Things were kind of down. We were living in Anderson, Indiana, and there just wasn't a lot for him to do there. and he had great computer skills, but he joined the Army, and that's why he went. And of course, never dreaming that we were going to be in another war.
No, yeah, so many did.
And
Rick
the fact that
I'm
he
sorry.
got out, he actually did his 4 years and he had gotten out. And he, at that time, it was when you did 4 years in service and then 4 years reserve, but you never did anything, just they could call you up. So he'd come home in the summer of 1990, and in January 91, they called him and told him he had to come back.
Yeah.
He was a helicopter refueler.
That's what he was, a helicopter refueler with the 475th Quartermaster Group.
Well, that's where they put him. When he went back, they took like, I don't know, 200, 250. And I think most of them were refuelers. They brought back and sent them over there, and then they dispersed them all out to wherever. And I believe he was the only one that went to that group. So when he was killed, it took them 5 days to notify us because they didn't know he was from Indiana. They thought he was from Pennsylvania.
They thought he was with the 14th Quartermaster Detachment. Right. I want to remind people a little bit about what these Scud attacks were about. It turns out that the 1 million man Iraqi army was really rotted from within, with terrible leadership, very poor morale, not well trained. They were exhausted after an 8-year bloody war with Iran. But we didn't know that at the time. When the invasion took place, the ground invasion took place, it became clear that Iraq really didn't have that many cards to play. The one card that they felt they had to play were these so-called Scud missiles that were Soviet-built ballistic medium-range missiles that Iraq had kind of retrofitted to go a little bit farther distance, maybe 400 miles, 500 miles instead of 200 miles. But it meant that they were largely inaccurate. They couldn't really target them to any one place. They could just send them in the general direction. And they only had, 100 of them or so. They ended up shooting 88 of them during this war in January and February, half of them toward Israel, hoping that Israel would overreact to it and split the coalition by having some of the Middle Eastern Arabic countries peel off of the great coalition that was built around the United States effort here. And then half of them against Saudi Arabia, which was hosting, Americans for the war and where Americans were stationed. And so these Scud missiles were mobile. They were on trucks. They were very hard to find. The air war was actually extended and the ground war was delayed to try and find more of them because pilots were searching for them, searching the desert for these things so they could destroy them so that they wouldn't terrorize the population. When you have a weapon that cannot be aimed properly, all it does is promote terror, to terrorize civilian populations. And that's what the US was trying to prevent by knocking out these Scud missiles. On February 25th, one of these Scud missiles at around 8:40 p.m. Came whistling toward Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, where American reservists were stationed. Rick Altman was there. Rick is with us tonight. And Rick saw this attack take place. He was in Dhahran, and he remembers that Scud being fired. He remembers it, coming in, there being a thin trace of light, then an explosion. He thought at first it was a Patriot missile intercepting the Scud, but it wasn't. It was an initial explosion, and then there was a subsequent explosion, and you could see the damage that it did to the building. And that's where Brian was. Oh boy, I have a hard question for you, Chris. And I don't know if it's an appropriate question or not, but I'll take a chance. There were so few Americans who were killed in this war. Do you think it's harder? I mean, in the hundreds, right? Do you think it's harder to be a Gold Star mother in a war where so few people share your grief? You could unmute yourself if you'd like. Chris, we can't hear you.
I never really thought about it that way, I guess, because when I joined the Gold Star Mothers, the group that I joined actually were all Vietnam mothers.
Okay.
And several of them have died off now. But they were all, I mean, I was the only Desert Storm. And they were all Vietnam mothers. So I really hadn't thought about that.
So they came, the Vietnam Gold Star mothers supported you
Yes.
in your grief.
Mhm.
That's terrific. We have Leon Mickens, who is a Marine in Desert Storm. Hi, Leon. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate it.
We could barely hear you, but I'm just curious what you think about this memorial effort.
I'm trying to figure out how to turn up my volume.
Okay. Well, how about you work on that? And I'll mute you for now while you're working on that. And then we can come back to you because I do have some great pictures of you in Desert Storm. Rick Altman, I don't know if you care. Rick is one of these rare veterans who served in, let's see, it was first a Marine in Vietnam, and then it was the Navy. And then finally he gave the Army a shot and he ended up in Desert Storm. Rick, I don't know if you want to share your thoughts on either the memorial or the upcoming anniversary. What will you be doing? Will you be going to the memorial in Greensburg on the 25th on Thursday?
I hope to. I would like to do that. Customarily, for the last 10 or 12 years, I've been in Florida at this time of the year. But it's thought-provoking. And since I'm here sharing this lovely weather with everyone, I thought I would drive. I now live in Washington County. I'll drive over to Greensburg on that day and think about the decision of a man I only saw once, never saw him again, don't remember his name. But for him, but for the grace of God, I would have been in that building.
Yeah, and you wrote a nice piece about that memory that we sent out in an email the other day. Ellie, or Sean, if you want to add it, the link to it here on the Zoom side or on the Facebook side. Do you care to share that story? Because you were in the Marine Corps, you served in Vietnam, you came back home, you got on with your life, but you always missed that military family. And so you thought you would join a reserve unit, and you tried to join the 14th Quartermaster Detachment.
Yes, that's correct. I had been living in Maryland and had been a member of an engineer unit in the Maryland National Guard. When I moved to Pennsylvania for job reasons, I started searching for reserve units close to where I was living. And surprisingly, the quartermaster company, because it was water purification, they had a couple of engineer slots due to, I guess, working with grounds and putting up buildings and so on at these water purification points. So they had one engineer slot for which I was suited by rank and MOS. But the first sergeant said, we have a young fellow here who's been with us since his basic training, and he's headed for that slot that you're eligible for, and I would be disloyal to him if I give it to you. And I accepted that. That was a reasonable explanation, and went on about my way. I ultimately found an engineer unit that I fit into. I never gave it a thought until that night. And I thought to myself, I don't know, I don't remember that first sergeant's name. And I don't know the name of the young man who got the slot I was headed for. There, but for that young man and the loyalty of his first sergeant, I might have been in that building.
Yeah. Boy. Brad Washabaugh, you have your hand up. You were an officer in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm.
Yes, this is one, I think, Todd, this is a fantastic show. I don't think I'd ever get a chance to thank Randy for all the work he's done. As a Desert Storm veteran, as a military veteran, I think we have these memorials to honor, but never forget. And I think it's magnificent. I really think it's well done. It's well thought out. And it's needed. I can remember coming home to a nation that was unified. And it's sad that we have to have a war to bring people together, to bring countries together. There are other good reasons to bring countries and people together, but war brings out the best and it brings out the worst in people. And this memorial tells me about the best, about the people that went forward. Some gave their lives, but they all served and they stood tall and they stood firm against somebody that was evil and wreaked havoc on a country that needed to be saved. And we did it. And coming home to the yellow ribbons, coming home to the parades. I mean, can you imagine a Marine marching in the streets of Hollywood in a victory parade? That was fantastic. And flying across the country in a big 747 with ground control saying, "This is Chicago. We know who you are and what you did. Godspeed and welcome home." And coming home and cracking the hatch of that 747 and sticking that flag out and waving it, and coming home to people cheering, thanking. And we felt bad in a way for the Vietnam veterans, but we also felt proud that we could represent all the military in those victory parades. So I'm extremely moved and thankful for everybody, for the stories, for the efforts, for the hard work that's been known. I knew about this memorial coming, and just so excited. And Randy, we'll have any names on this memorial of the fallen? You mentioned countries, but no names.
Good question, Randy.
Yeah, we've grappled with that question for a long time. At one time, we thought it might, but it's been something that ultimately it was decided because our memorial needed to be different and not be a place of mourning, and be a memorial not just to the 383 who lost their lives, but a memorial for everyone who served. Those were some of the main reasons it was decided that they would not put the names on it. There are other more mundane reasons. For example, and this is not the most compelling reason, but honestly, it's really very, very difficult to do it, because to put an actual number to it, because where do you draw the line? You know, if you draw the line on the day the ceasefire, but what about the people that lost their life the next week? And what about the names you miss? You know, there'll be forever families coming forward saying, well, my loved one had PTSD, or, you know, as a result of complications, they died a year later. They should be on. There is a lot of reasons why the National Park Service and the Commission of Fine Arts didn't want names on it. But I think in the end, the board of directors grappled with it. And like I said, it's led by veterans. It wasn't a decision made by the designers or any one person. It was a decision. We even consulted Christine about it. And in the end, it was decided that this memorial would not have the names of the fallen on it.
C. Freeman, you've been quiet this whole time. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts on what we've been discussing?
Well, first of all, I want to tell Miss Jensen, thank you for being here, and good seeing you. And I can tell you, this little lady here was very instrumental in helping us get that site. Her testimony was so moving, and I don't think there was a dry eye at the Commission of Fine Arts hearing that she testified at. It was moving, and it just solidified why we're doing this. It's for, yes, ma'am. And so I'm a Desert Shield, Desert Storm veteran. Back then, I just joined the service to serve my country, but I wanted to be a paratrooper in the 82nd and get my college fund. And that was pretty much it. And after my first field exercise, I was pulled out of that exercise and sent over in Saudi Arabia as a young private, and never saw any of this coming about. And we just were all doing our duty. We're just doing our job. And to come back as heroes was amazing. We had sergeant majors who sat in the airport and cried, that served in Vietnam, that came back to a totally different situation. You're like, what's up? Sergeant majors, he said he couldn't believe how we were treated and respected compared to how he was treated years before. And, you know, Randy hit upon it. The majority of our senior leaders are Vietnam veterans. And, you know, thank God they said it's not going to happen on their watch again. And after Vietnam, they started turning the service around and started training for this. And when this happened, we were ready. The technology was there. We did our job. So, you know, this is an honor to serve on the board. It's I've been with the board since 2015. That's my platoon right there. That's the January 17th when we got word that we were moving out for Desert Storm. So that was that's a great group of guys who we just have a common bond that to this day lasts. We're texting right now while we're on this call. So the camaraderie is what was drawn to me to serve again. And I'm just truly amazed at our team. I mean, Randy has been here longer than anybody. And we wouldn't be where we're at without Randy. I remember in the first meeting that we had for the site selection, we were going to go look at all the sites. And Randy had a little pointer and he pointed right to our site. And that's just a magical moment to me, is that he is the one who said this site right here. And we went out and toured them. And when that was the last site we went to, and when we all got there, it was like the aha moment. Everybody turned around. And I remember Colonel Legg said, "This is it, fellas. This is it." And so from that point on, we went after the site. And it's just been a labor of love with everybody. Just like Randy said, it's been tough, but it's been a journey that I pinch myself that I'm actually involved in it. You know, it's just a private, I was a radio teletype operator in the desert. So to be here now, but I'm really honored to be here amongst all the soldiers and all the Desert Storm soldiers and Vietnam soldiers and the civilians. So it's a big effort, you know, so that's how I feel right now.
So you just reminded me, I guess you could say Desert Storm was the last teletype war.
Yes. Yes, I actually had a teletype. I sat in front of a teletype in a Humvee and did messages. We didn't have emails. We didn't have the internet to us. We had a fax machine that was probably the size of I don't know.
Volkswagen.
It was a 2-man lift. I can tell you that for the fax machine back then. So yeah, we wrote letters to our loved ones. We didn't talk to them. We wrote letters. So it's kind of strange to know that that was only 30 years ago.
Yes,
it was.
Yeah, exactly. That's how old you are. See,
yes,
Christine, and then I want to go to Larry, but Chris, Larry Googans has just alerted me. He thinks that you have visited us here in Western Pennsylvania for a Tet party in February one year in Aliquippa.
No.
Okay.
Different
In
one.
fact, I have tried to reach someone there several times and never got a call back about coming there. I've been there, but not for any of the ceremonies. I've been there to see the monument.
Larry, we've got to get Chris here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought a fellow named Bill Russo may have brought you to one of the tent parties in Hopewell.
No.
Okay. Well, we will now.
Great.
Yes. Yes. Larry Gamrett, what were you going to say?
I'm just going to say, Todd, that I did have one opportunity to speak to my mom in Vietnam, all right? And that was using a radio telephone operation in an FTC, no, well, I call it FTC or whatever it is, all right? Using the signal battalion equipment. And what they did is they asked you for your phone number, who you're going to call, and they would radio what I'm saying over to the United States, state of Pennsylvania. And then they tell Bell Telephone or whoever, say that your son calling you from Vietnam. And you only had 5 minutes to say, "Hi, Mom, how you doing? Goodbye, Mom." That's what I did.
Yes, we've had
when
some
I hear all these stories about computers and all this, man, it puts me out, man. It really does.
Absolutely, Larry. Yeah, we've had some great stories from Ed Blank and from Clem Blazewick about how much effort it took to get a phone call from Vietnam back home. I know that we're reaching 8:30, which is the end of our program. So don't feel like you're being rude if you step off. I want to go a little bit long, just because we have a few other people I want to ask questions of. Robbie, Roberta, Shioli, you've been sitting, and Bill Prizzuti, your cousin? Is he your cousin? Is Tony your cousin?
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay. You have my sympathies.
He's a wonderful man.
Thank you. I know that you've been sitting waiting patiently. You're a Blue Star mother, and not of Desert Storm. This is your son, Luke Shioli, who looks extremely impressive here as a Green Beret combat medic. You came on our program last time. I did have some photos of him that I didn't share, but I thought I'd share these. You talked a bit about Luke and Larry Guggens. He's your neighbor. Luke was your neighbor growing up, or when he was growing up. And we heard a little bit about his story. I just thought I'd share some of these pictures of him. He was badly wounded. This is what he's doing now. Is he still in New York City right now?
He is. He went back about a month ago to work with the second surge of COVID patients coming through.
Okay. And he was badly wounded in Iraq? Afghanistan.
January 18th, 2018.
And I bet you and Christine could relate a lot to each other, and the kind of trepidation that you had having a son in a war zone, and
Absolutely. And nothing really prepares you for for a call indicating that there's been a serious injury kind of thing. I'm a nurse by background as well, and nothing really does prepare you for that as a parent.
And it looks like he had to kind of learn how to walk again, or practice his walking.
He did. He had his injuries were substantial, where the cervical vertebrae in his neck were compromised because of a building falling on him, and his left hip was fractured from the femur sort of hitting into that bone of the pelvis. So he couldn't really bear weight for 3 months from the pelvis injury, but more substantial and more concerning at the time were his neck injuries. He owes his walking and his ability to move all arms and legs to the efforts in Germany, where he was taken after the injury.
This is a sobering picture for me. This is him at the beach, and you could see the scar running up the back of his neck.
I will tell you, you were showing me pictures that I've not seen.
Oh gosh, you're kidding me.
I've seen some of them, but there are some that I don't, I had not seen. And Luke was no, please. I mean, he was a very private individual when it came to me. I think maybe wanting to protect me.
Yeah. Of course he would.
Yes. But I mean, he's come so far. He has, it's a lifetime journey, but he has really come so far and is doing remarkably well.
Robbie, it's a lifetime journey, but think about, so he's still recovering, and what is he doing? He's out helping other people.
He is. It's amazing to me where he gets that strength to do that and that commitment to do that. We were a friend of mine who knows all my family for a very long time. I worked with her, and she's sort of the queen of pre-hospital care in the Pittsburgh area. She sent a post to me from Facebook where somebody in New York posted comments about his service there. and what an inspiration his efforts are to them. You know, to sort of not feel sorry for yourself, but to, you know, think of a way to give back, no matter how that is, you know, no matter what type of work that is. And it was remarkable to me that, you know, that's my child. And secondly, that, you know, it's pretty amazing that he continues to give. He's given so much already.
You know what, Robbie, he must have had a good mother.
You're very
Amen to
kind.
that.
So, Larry may disagree. I don't know. Larry might disagree.
No, I do not. You know, I don't disagree. Todd, this young man has been giving to help people as long as I've known him, and I've known him, oh, I don't know, since he was a small boy. Todd, I'll tell you, I tried the other way. I won't do it now. It's getting late. Of what he has done since he was a young man. He is always been out helping people. And that's what he's doing now. I told you already, he is my hero and always will be. Thanks, Todd.
Wonderful. Robbie and Bill, would you like to say anything? I know that I wanted Bill to talk eventually about Bill Pursuti, about his 101st Airborne experiences, but do you have anything to say about Luke?
Well, Luke, as Larry said, is a fine young man, and we give him a lot of credit for what he's gone through. He's a very personal guy. Doesn't like to talk a lot about, you know, his experiences. But Todd, just a moment, if I may, with my cousin Roberta, which you refer to as Robbie. We come from a military family. I believe during the Second World War, we may have had 8 uncles at one time serving during the Second World War. My background, as you mentioned, is with the 101st Airborne. But we had an uncle that served in the 2nd Rangers, if you remember the movie, you know, recently that was made. So we have a long line of experience with the military. But to all of you that have served, and Chris, you losing a member of your family, and Robbie, what you've gone through with Luke, good luck. And thanks for the time, Todd.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for coming. Does anybody have any questions for Chris or C or Randy or any of our Desert Storm veterans? Chris Pirollo.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Chris Pirollo, U.S. Navy Reserve retired. Randy, congratulations on the project. It's, I guess, overdue to have definitely overdue to have such a memorial. But I noticed in the design, and maybe it's a restriction, but I did not notice a flagpole or any flagpoles associated with the memorial. Did I miss that, or is that part of the design?
No, that's an excellent question. We, again, it's, we are looking at ways to incorporate maybe the flag, maybe in the carvings, but it, due to the height restriction, and also just if you have a flag, then the National Park Service would need to maintain it, put it up and take it down in bad weather and all of that. So I think the flags, we've looked at maybe putting around the fountain, maybe a flag of each country, maybe in the bronze work or in the stone work somehow, so it's not an actual flag. Yeah, it's funny how some decisions about the design of the memorial are driven by just some of the realities of maintaining it. Because the Park Service will become the owner of the memorial. And before we break ground, I said we need to have 100% of the money. Well, we actually need to have 110%, because 10% has to be maintained for maintaining the memorial in the future. In the Park Service, you know, they're spread across all of Washington, D.C. and all the other parks in the country. And there are just certain realistic limitations to what they can maintain. So what we can design has certain limitations on it too. Like we can't pick any plant material we want to use. You know, there's trees and there's grass and there's stone and there's bronze, and getting a water feature isn't the easiest thing in the world to do either, but we really want it, so we're pushing for the water feature. And but yeah, the flag is something we've talked about in some iterations of the design. At times we've contemplated a flag. When we were one of the other sites we were looking at, which wasn't on the National Mall, you could go as tall as you wanted. And we could have put flags there to the extent that they could maintain them. But being on the mall, being so close to everything, they just wouldn't allow anything that was tall.
Randy, this is a good opportunity for you to let people know if they want to support the project by donating, where would they go?
Please, yes. The National Desert Storm and Desert Shield Memorial website, which is, I think it's ndsm.org, National Desert Storm. Is it Desert Shield? See?
Yeah, NDSWM. Yes.
ndswn.org. Please do donate. It really helps. There is a strong need for it. There is, I'm going to be honest with you, corporate America really, we've had a few corporate sponsors who have helped. Pilot Truck Stops has helped, and there's been a few. I can't name them. I'm not, on the board, but you'd think a great cause like this would not have any shortage of funds, but through the hard work of a lot of board members and the gift shop and literally bake sales and selling hats and t-shirts on the website. And, Jill Etter is a board member, and her daughter have worked tirelessly to keep enough funds rolling in to keep things operational. But, it's not like some of the big corporations that sold arms, the people that make Humvees and weapon systems and things like that haven't really stepped up yet to help us. So there is a strong need for funds to keep us moving forward with this effort.
I did put the link here on the Zoom side in the chat. I also put my email. So if you're looking, if you don't get if you can't get connected to the Memorial Foundation, you could email me. I'll connect you. I'll make sure that you get the link that you need. And also, I just want to invite people who don't get our emails, who don't get our mailing. Patrick, I know, was here for the first time, Desert Storm. Please do email me. Let me know who you are, and I will make sure that you get on our email list. And what are you showing me there, Patrick?
I just, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I'd just like everybody to remember the 26 soldiers and one civilian contractor that we lost in the 1st Infantry Division during Desert Storm.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Somebody did ask the question if Kuwait had donated. Excellent question. Yes, they have, or at least I guess I should say the nation of Kuwait has pledged $10 million for the memorial. We think, the final cost we think will probably be somewhere around 35 million. Since the design isn't done yet, it's impossible to say exactly what it's going to cost. We also don't know how long it will take us to get it built, but we think maybe somewhere between 30 and 40. I mean, that's where we are. Kuwait has promised $10 million. However, they are not releasing any of those funds for the design effort. So the board hasn't, and please correct me if I don't say this right, but we haven't received any actual funds from Kuwait yet. So the board is working very hard to keep, enough donations coming in to keep the design effort moving forward.
Yeah, the wonderful point, Robbie. Tom Hanks spoke in support of the World War II Memorial. We need a celebrity speaking in support of this memorial, I think.
We do.
We do. If
yes.
anybody knows
I
one,
know somebody.
be open.
Yeah. Let's see. Somebody here should become famous.
I'm
Leo
not
West,
famous.
we'll make you famous. This is great. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you will join us again. Randy, you'd always be welcome. Christine, thank you. You're generous and courageous to join us. I can't thank you enough. C, please do feel like if you want to join us anytime, would love to have you. I'm going to go ahead and put you on our email list. You could unsubscribe if you're sick of hearing me,
Please do.
but I'd love to have you anytime you want to drop in so you get our latest, events. Would love to say hello to you and have you join our community here. We'll be back here next week, March 1st, celebrating the birthday of the Navy Seabees. Yay, look at Donald. There's one person in this whole meeting who's cheering. Don Wolf. So we are going to be celebrating Navy Seabees because the Seabee birthday is March 5th. So we're going to have the program March 1st. We're going to be talking about the Seabees. And also Greg Yost has very generously offered to talk a little bit about the end of Desert Storm. Because as a historian, I know, and everybody should know, how to end a war is much more important than beginning one. Ending a war is really tough. Usually you're keeping a door open to another war. That's usually what happens. And certainly that's what happened with Desert Storm. So we're going to talk about the end of the Desert Storm War, how it came to an end, the loose ends that weren't tied up. So let's talk about that next week. But tomorrow night, I hope you'll join us for Bud Anderson, the P-51 pilot, the Triple Ace, the test pilot. I look forward to this, and I look forward to seeing you all again. All right. Take care. Good night, everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you.